AOS fans, Robin here, back in the garage after a lockdown hiatus. I mean, I'm allowed to go into my garage and not very far away from my house, but Pete and I haven't been in here for a few weeks now. We won't be in for a few weeks more because we are staying at home. But I thought I'd come out and create this little video for you. Obviously, Pete and I aren't playing. We're getting some online games in. A lot of you will be struggling to get out and play games, and lots of people doing online versions. But of course, the other kind of physical thing we can do with our hobby is paint. Yes, we all have kind of piles of shame. I've got lots of unpainted scenery up there behind me, and I've got an unpainted pop here, and I've got an unopened Ezra Bridger and Kane and Joe, which I'd love to paint, and there's probably unpainted miniatures in there as well. So we've all got these sort of grey piles of shame, as they're called, which is much better than the brown piles of shame that my children used to leave me from time to time. But yeah, these grey piles of shame that we want to get rid of, and I guess this is, if there's only one small grey/silver lining of all this, is that some of us are getting more time to paint. Obviously some of us aren't. Some of us are out there working hard, sort of keeping coronavirus at bay and making sure everybody's fed and all that kind of stuff. So thank you very much to you guys as usual. But those of us who are lucky enough to not have to go out very much, we can get on with our hobby, which is brilliant. Pete and I have been painting up our stuff for Necromunda. We're heading towards playing Necromunda as soon as we're out of lockdown and can meet up safely. We will be doing that, and I've been painting the Escher, and Pete's been painting the Cawdor, and I've got hold of some Delac as well. So we've all got miniatures to paint, and we're going to be doing that. And while we've been doing that, we've been thinking about painting and what painting means to us. We've come up with our kind of 10 truths, and I think it's turned into 11 truths of painting. It's a bit of tongue-in-cheek, it's not really the truth of painting, but these are the things we think about painting, and we thought we'd share them with you while we can't make videos together, and just to talk about our hobby. It's nice to talk about the hobby, isn't it? So, what are they then? Well, number one is that everybody starts somewhere, and I mean, there's some famous pictures of Duncan Rhodes or whatever, his first ever miniature. It looks like it's been paint dropped on it from a great height, and to be honest, everybody's does. And some people progress at different rates, but everybody starts somewhere. And so don't be, if you've got these miniatures that you want to paint, but you're not sure how to, don't worry about it. Just get stuck in. Once you start, things get much easier, which is kind of number two, really. Start. Just make a start. You've got to, no matter how intricate or simple the model is, starting can be the big problem. And once you start, things just get easier. Once you've blocked out a colour, it already looks better. Which I suppose kind of moves on to number three, which is know why you paint. Now this might seem kind of obvious, and most of you who are experienced painters will already know why they paint, and there are many different reasons for painting. We paint primarily these days because unpainted models on a YouTube channel are an enormous turn off. People will switch off straight away if the warbands aren't painted or the miniatures aren't painted. So we want to get them painted, and obviously we have asked other people very kindly to chip in and help us out with that, and they've been brilliant at doing that. But we do like to paint them ourselves, and I suppose that leads into the sort of next thing, which is that the miniatures do look a lot better, even with a rudimentary kind of 3-colour paint job with a bit of wash thrown on them. They look better though, so that's our reason for painting, is to make the miniatures look a little bit better, and that is most people's primary focus, is just to make their miniatures look great. But most of us aren't, let's face it, going to be competition winners. They're not going to win Golden Demon Awards, and I think we have to kind of get away from that feeling of inferiority about our miniatures compared with somebody else's. Most of us are just journeyman painters, in the same way as most of us don't play football for Manchester United in England or something like that. But we do enjoy it, and a lot of people do enjoy playing Sunday football out in the park, and it's much the same. So kind of know why you paint. One of the other reasons I paint is actually, over time, I find it incredibly relaxing. I never used to find it quite stressful, but now I find it quite zen. I love being just me and my miniatures, a little bit of music on maybe. I don't tend to put music on, actually. I know a lot of people do, but just that chill out, that kind of headspace time, which I think in the modern world is more and more important, to just have a bit of chill out time that's just for you. And obviously people do different things in different ways, and obviously with the coronavirus coming, people are perhaps having more time than they really need to themselves, but it gives you a way of kind of occupying the hands, and the brain can wander, and you just get on with it, and it's just really nice. So that's another reason for doing it. But know what it is you're trying to get out of your painting, I suppose, is the point of this kind of long rambling discussion. So the next reason is, I suppose it follows on from that. If you know why you're painting, you know what you want to achieve. If you're, you know what you're aiming for, you're more likely to get there. And I guess if it could be a very long journey if you do want to become a world-class painter, but for most of us, it is just decently painted miniatures that look great on the tabletop. And that's, you look at sites like Zarastro, or in particular for quick, easy results, Midwinter Minis. There's lots of really easy ways to get good quality looking miniatures on the table, and that's, for me, that's what it's about, and for Pete, that's what it's about. But having said that, our next truth, if you like, is that practice does make you better. I mean, it's a real old adage and a bit of a cliche, but practice does make perfect. I'm not sure it makes perfect, but I think there's something along the line, some theory that if you do something for 10,000 hours, then you become a master at it. And if you're a follower of Matthew Syed, who is a Times columnist and a former Olympic table tennis player, he is very much a believer that practice gets perfect, and talent is a bit of a misnomer, and it is all about practicing. I'm not entirely sure I subscribe to his theory, but definitely the more you do it, the more you do something, the better at it you get. I keep telling my children this all the time, who want to be brilliant straight out of the blocks. That isn't going to happen. You do need to put the time in, but if you do get better. I have done very little painting in the last sort of 12 months, but I've noticed even in these few weeks that the Escher I'm doing now is much better than the Escher I did 3 weeks ago, just because getting into that habit just makes things a little bit better. I notice things a bit more. I realise mistakes I've made from the previous iteration, if you like, and you just get a little bit better every hour you do. You get that little bit better, which is great, and that is worth bearing in mind. If you are starting, I suppose you know where you start. Everybody starts somewhere, but just knowing each day you are improving your ability, which I think is a really important point. And one of the joys of painting is you can see, no matter where you start on the ladder, you can see a definite improvement. It's not like when I played tennis, and I could see very little improvement, and it's no fun for the other person on the other side of the net. It being a personal discipline, you can improve at your own rate, which is brilliant. Of course, you may not feel you're improving, and I think this one for me might be the most important truth of them all, and that is that only you can see the picture in your head of what the miniature was meant to look like. I heard that about something else. I think it might have been about writing, but whatever it is, when you're doing a creative endeavour, you know what you wanted it to look like when you finished, and quite often in your mind it doesn't look like that. I remember that as a child, trying to draw pictures. I'm not very good at trying to draw pictures, and they didn't look anything like it, and get really frustrated. And I've seen it in my son as well, who's a bit of a perfectionist. It doesn't look how you want it, and so it looks terrible. But other people, when they look at it, they don't see that. They see what is there, not what was meant to be there, or not what the person was trying to do. They see what they've actually done, and more often than not, that is much better through the eyes of a third party than it is through you. You know where you went over the lines, for want of a better way of putting it. You know where you didn't quite get the colour that you wanted, but they don't see that. They just see it for what it is, and that's normally a lot better for the artist sees it. And I think that's really important to appreciate, that you know where you went over the lines, but everybody else looking doesn't, and sees it for what it is, and how great it is. So that's a really important consideration. I almost put that at the top, because I do think that's the most important one, that you've got to get away from this image that's in your head and remember that everybody else only sees the actual finished article. The internet. Now, the internet is absolutely brilliant for the hobby. I remember when I was younger and I used to crave kind of White Dwarf arriving, and it would have some tips for painters in there, and sometimes they would be not particularly useful, but other times I remember there was one thing I used for ages and ages and ages, a paint chart of what colours to use with what for dry brushing and shading and all that kind of stuff, and it was invaluable, and I copied it all out and carried it around with me everywhere in a battered piece of paper by the time we're finished. But the internet, you don't need any of that, because there's so much stuff available, almost too much. But you can get paint jobs, recipes, tips and things for how to do stuff. It's really great. So obviously, I mean, you all know that if you're watching this, you've probably scraping the very bottom of the internet barrel when it comes to painting advice. But so you've probably seen everything else. But there's so much out there. But I think what's really important is to use it for inspiration, and try not to use it for comparison, because you won't get there. Zarastro, Duncan Rhodes, any of the Games Workshop team, they're all excellent painters, and you don't compare yourself. Use them for inspiration, use them for their ideas, but don't compare your finished product from them, because they've been doing it, a lot of them, it's their job, and it's been their job for a long time, and they're going to be better. So try not to get too downhearted when you don't reach it. And not just the hobbyists, the professional painting studios. There's some amazing paint jobs out there, and it's easy to lose heart, I think, thinking I'll never get there, but it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter, because it's a personal journey, I think. So use the internet for inspiration, but don't use it for comparison. Okay, getting on to some more silly ones now. It's a truth that no matter how assiduously you try to remove your mould lines and bits of flash and what have you, as soon as you stuck the model together and painted it, and sprayed it in particular, more suddenly appear. I don't know what that is. I have a slightly unusual way of looking at mould lines. I don't tend to notice them after the model's finished, so I don't worry too much about it. I know that would drive some people absolutely insane, and if I do ever do a painting video, you'll probably see little bits of imperfection that would drive some people bonkers. But for me, I don't see it afterwards, and I guess this is almost going back to that know why you paint and know what you're after. It doesn't bother me. So I'll just get on with it and paint it. I want to get paint on and get things together. I hate the sticking together process. I hate that so much. I just want to get it done. If I could get miniatures that were single piece, I totally would. The Delac models that we got were from a friend of Pete's, and I bought them off him all made. That's just perfect. So I could do that. If I could buy assembled models, I totally would, all the time. But I digress. Yes, so I find that no matter how hard I try and do it, I always miss stuff, and so that will always happen. And you'll find yourself being irritated by that. Which similarly, when you're painting and you very carefully paint your base colours on, and then you go around, you painted it all, and then you come back and you do the next colour. So I'm doing my Escher purple and orange at the moment. I've done the orange, and I come to do the purple, and I turn it over, and it's like, I should have done that bit orange. Why did I not do that bit orange? Oh, never mind, I'll come back and do that. And you paint it over again, and then you go, right, where was the orange? And then you can't find it. So you think, oh, well, so I was mistaken. And then you put it away, and then you come and do the gunmetal or whatever, and you come and do that, and you see that where that bit of orange was. And this always happens to me all the time when I'm painting. I always miss bits. Always. And you think, how did I miss that? And you go around and you check and you fill in the bits later, and you do the next colour. Let's say it's the leather, and then you notice another bit of orange you've missed. How does that happen? I think there is somebody going around with a little bit of primer and just, when you're out of the room, just covering over bits that you've already painted. It's the only logical explanation, I think. Moving on to slightly insane ideas that I have. Paintbrushes. Everybody has different thoughts about what paintbrushes they like, and we might do a separate video about the kit we use, the things we do like and don't like about Games Workshop products, Vallejo products, all that kind of stuff. But for this one, this is just a truism for me about paintbrushes, and it doesn't apply to paintbrushes, it applies to other things too, is that my paintbrushes are old and knackered, and I think I really need new ones. It's like, oh no, I don't want to, they're expensive, I don't want to waste money buying paintbrushes. I keep trying and they're splayed and flayed all over, but I've got some brush cleaner, they get a little bit better over this, blade again, and so I'll buy some new ones because it's like really quite time. I'm trying to paint eyes. I've got paintbrush that can do both eyes at once, and I think, well, I definitely need some new. I definitely need some new paintbrushes, so I buy them and I hit them and I sit them by the side of my palette, and I think, oh, I don't want to use one of my new ones because I'll spoil it. I'll use an old one. So these sit there for a good 3 months before I think, okay, I really do need to use them. And like I say, this applies to all sorts of things in my life. I used to have a pair of shoes once upon a time that I really did like, I have to say. They had holes in and they leaked. So I thought, well, I better get a new pair of shoes because they leaked. And then the first time it rained, I wore my old shoes because I didn't want to get the new ones wet. Talking of kits, I mean, a little bit about kit there, is you don't need all of the kit, you don't need the best kit. And I think this is something to get hold of. You see these amazing painting, particularly probably the people who do it for a living, but you see these amazing painting setups with racks and racks of all of the Vallejo paints, all the Army Painter paints, all the Citadel paints. And the Citadel paints, I think they must just leave them together with romantic music and some wine or something, because they just produce colours all the time and they're all subtly different. They're the offspring of I don't know, Iron Breaker and Lead Belcher. You suddenly find some Roomfang still or something because they got a bit drunk one night. And so there's just so many different colours, but actually you don't really need those at all. And again, I would refer you to Midwinter Minis to look at how to just do it with the base. I think he uses about 14 colours, and of course you can mix colours. People seem to have forgotten the art of mixing colours these days. It's all because there are just so many shades. Yeah, and we all like to buy paint. I like to buy paint because it's quite a cheap way of getting that hobby fix. It doesn't take up much room. So if I buy a couple of paints instead of like 2 boxes of miniatures, it's a lot cheaper and it's a lot easier to hide. But you don't need it all. You can use cheap primer. You can even use cheap paintbrushes if you want to. There are various. You can, like all hobby things. You can pay very little, or you can pay astronomical amounts. Any male hobbies like cycling. I mean, you can buy a cheap bike with cheap parts for nothing, or you can spend £3,500 on a bike and have wheels that cost more than your children's education. You can do that. If you want to, but similarly you don't have to, and I think it can be a little bit exclusive, and you can feel like there's a pressure, particularly with all the Games Workshop products that they do, to get everything, otherwise you won't be able to paint, and that frankly is rubbish. And I would recommend again Midwinter Minis to see how you can paint with just bog standard stuff. So that's it. There's our truth of painting. I think I said there were 10 or 11, I don't know, I kind of lost count, and actually some of them when I was going through my list kind of turned out to be kind of the same thing, but they're our truths of painting. Do let me know what you think. If you have one piece of advice to give a new painter, or even like a mediocre middle of the road painter who's been doing it a long time like me, what would it be? What would you say? What do you do? What are your hobby rituals? What things do you like? What don't you like? Do let us know in the comments below. Do let us know if you want to see more videos like this. Obviously we can't play much at the moment, but if you want a few more talking heads type stuff, we can totally do that, probably, and we can talk for hours, me and Pete, and so we'll happily produce stuff. Do check out, we've got some more online games coming. There's lots more Warhammer Underworlds online Skaven are out, and we'll be playing those, and I'm hoping to do some Gloomhaven soon, which will be to go in a slightly different direction. I've never played Gloomhaven the game. I'm interested to see those minis. I'm going to be doing some painting as well. I'll keep putting pictures of those up on the Facebook pages. You can see those as we get ready for our Necromunda games. But until then, stay safe, and I hope you're all okay, and we'll see you soon.